What is up, guys? This is not our usual thing since we're usually coming to you live from a podcast, except not live. I mean, you know what I mean. And this is not a podcast. This is just us talking randomly,
Yes,
ranting.
we're actually doing a YouTube video for the first time in I don't know how long. Well, I guess since the last time we did the actual live podcast, if you want to count that.
Yeah, that was a New Year's thing, so that was like already over 2 months ago.
Yeah. And then the thing before that was me lamenting about a series that I hoped to be really good, but kind of let me down. I won't even mention it. You can just go and look. But now we're talking about a series that I wasn't looking forward to, but it actually surpassed my expectations. It did the inverse of letting me down. It brought me up.
So, first things first, we did just record a podcast on the first episode of Superman and Lois, which you can check out. We'll have it in the description below, but all of our links are on utterlynonsense.com. Go check that out because we really did a deep dive on our initial reaction to the first episode, to the series as a whole, and, just what our expectations were going in. So this is obviously going to be much shorter. So if you want a more in-depth discussion, go check out the podcast. The one thing I forgot to mention when we were recording the actual podcast was, we're sort of theorizing that this version of Superman and Lois is either part of a multiverse, part of a different universe from the main continuity. We're still not exactly clear what universe in the Arrowverse this is set in, if that makes sense. And I'm now more convinced than ever it's not Earth Prime, because it did occur to me when, right after we recorded the last podcast, that there was actually a arc in, I think, season 3 of Supergirl, where they revealed that there's a whole planet full of Kryptonians. He's not the only one alive. There's a whole city that they basically rescued from the middle of nowhere. And there's no reference to that whatsoever in these first couple episodes. So either it's a time skip and they've completely trashed that plot altogether, or Elseworlds reset it and no longer exists, which I think they still featured this planet, asteroid, whatever you want to call it, in a separate sector of the world post-crisis on Supergirl. So I think it is most likely a separate universe from that continuity.
Yeah, because I did read somewhere that they were looking to mainly have it separate from the rest of the Arrowverse. Of course, there's the time skip alone, because clearly you see they have 2 sons now, which was a crisis reset, so there is that little point of continuity, but it's 14 years later, because they're both 14, and they're starting high school. Or at least I assume they're 14, because I think I was when I started high school.
Yeah, I was. I don't know if they ever explicitly said their age. I could have sworn we knew they were 14 from the beginning of that episode. And yeah, I think they definitely mentioned that they are both freshmen, so that sort of implies that that's their age, right?
Yeah. So narrative-wise, it is going to be, as far as we know so far, disconnected from the rest of the Arrowverse, which I think is a good thing. So in the very first episode, it felt like they pull out all the stops, because they show every single one of Superman's powers. You see his strength, you see his super speed, they do a slow-mo thing when he flies through the wall. You see his heat vision, which is red, the correct color now, not blue. You see his X-ray vision, I think you see his telescopic vision, freeze breath, hearing, and then they make a joke that he has super smell, but he never uses it.
Can you blame him?
Yeah, I don't think I would use it either, but that makes me think, how does Wolverine control it? Does he always just, every single time he walks into a room?
I mean, there's got to be some limitation.
Oh yeah, one other thing I wanted to praise was that the suit looks much better than before. It has a good balance of color. The musculature looks decent. The musculature is almost as good as the Henry Cavill one. Has some nice texturing. The size of the S is fine. And to me, it looks a lot like the suit that he had right after Rebirth, where it's basically the classic Superman suit, but without the trunks. And but except this one has a less open neckline for some reason. I don't know. I like the more open neckline, so I wish she had that. And is it just me, or does he always have a 5 o'clock shadow?
Yeah, there's something going on there. Yeah, I'm not sure why, but he does just have that sort of a slight facial hair to him. Yeah. So
anyway,
what can we really say? Yeah, go ahead.
The writing, I thought, was pretty decent. And so for the first 2 episodes, the writer is actually the one executive producer, the same guy, Todd Helbing. he wrote the first 2 episodes, and previously, before, he's written for The Flash. He wrote the season 4 finale with DeVoe. And in season 5, he wrote the episodes What's Past This Prologue, where Flash goes back in time with his daughter, and then they see, Reverse Flash as Welds, and they talk to him. And he also wrote the season 5 finale, where they fight Reverse Flash. So those were good episodes.
Right, yeah, definitely some of the high points.
Yeah, and he was also a staff writer on Spartacus, and, funny enough, because this is also a movie coming out next month, he wrote for the Mortal Kombat Legacy miniseries from back in 2011. Interesting.
Okay, so pretty decent resume.
Yeah. So we're in good hands for the first 2 episodes.
It definitely shows like a lot of time and care went into this. It looks completely different from everything else in the CW, which again, I think we said that a lot, but it's worth saying. So basically, what was introduced in the first episode?
So first we have, the kind of the opening summary where he talks about, here's how I came to Earth, here's how I met Lois. It just establishes everything pretty quick, and yeah, I was fine with that. It's like everyone knows who Superman is. We know about this Superman. We know about this Lois a little bit, and we know how the story goes. So I thought the way they went about introducing the whole setting and getting people up to speed was fine. I was good with that.
Yeah, I have no complaints. So basically, what we see in the first episode, the real plot that sort of envelops within the first 10 minutes, I think it is. Martha Kent dies. Superman's mom dies. Obviously,
spoilers,
it's tragic. Family. I mean, I think if someone's watching this, they probably saw the first episode. But just throwing a spoiler warning at the beginning. Martha Kent dies, which obviously prompts Clark to move back to Smallville to just see what's going on with the town. He feels like he's gotten away from his roots. So, given the whole theme of family that's present throughout the series, it makes a lot of sense that they're going back to Smallville to try to reclaim that part of his identity. So basically, what is going on in Smallville is that this guy, Morgan Edge, who we
Maxwell Lord Edge, Lord Max.
Edgelord to the max. So basically, he's mentioned by name only in the first episode. He comes in the second episode, and you sort of get what he's all about right away, right? Like, he's just this billionaire, super wealthy. I guess that's implied with billionaire.
Investor tycoon who buys up everything. He buys the Daily Planet outright, and everybody's getting laid off. They lay off Clark. What are you doing? I guess he's never around, is he?
Yeah, so it's like there's a lot of Jeff Bezos parallels, which are painfully obvious if you know anything about the real world's counterpart.
Yeah, that's what I thought of immediately.
Well, it's like Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, and they don't publish anything negative about Jeff Bezos. So we're sort of seeing the exact same thing here with Morgan Edge and the Daily Planet. And obviously, he's buying up the entire town. He's giving people jobs, but he's not paying them. All classic Bezos shit.
And it's kind of funny because he's being set up as a villain for Lois, because you kind of have 2 villains here, and it remains to be seen whether this one is connected to the other one, who's looks like the Doomslayer but wearing all black, which is obviously the antagonist for Superman. So we have this guy who buys the Daily Planet, and now he's buying up all this land in Smallville. It's like he's buying up the entire world around Lois Lane, and now she's, of course, being the enterprising reporter that she is. She's like, I've got to find out about this guy, and I got to take him down. And then Superman's like, I got to find out about this other guy who knows everything about me and take him down. So, true to the name of the series, it is like pretty much half and half coverage between them. But again, I'm also all right with that, and I'm okay with the whole family aspect to it because, we've seen a drama about his early life. We've seen Superman action series or movies. We've pretty much seen him do everything. But what haven't we seen him do on screen? Raise a family, which is sort of a new thing that's been going on in the comics post Rebirth as well. So I'm interested in that story being told.
Right. So obviously, the one big reveal in this second episode is that we now have a better idea of where Captain Luthor's origins are, or where he's actually from. While we don't explicitly know that he's from a different planet per se, he's definitely from a different universe. He's from a different timeline that was destroyed by an alternate version of Superman. That
it has to be, right?
I don't think there's any other explanation unless they come up with something super creative that I'm not thinking of.
I will say this, and this is kind of skipping ahead to episode 2. at the very end of it, we see a flashback of... Oh, and this Captain Luthor is different, obviously, by the way. He's black, for one, so clearly he's not John Cryer Luthor. Not any other Luthor we've seen thus far.
Well, we don't even know that he's Lex Luthor, right? They just call him Captain Luthor.
Just
For all
Luthor.
we know, that could be his first name. Or
it could be Alexander Luthor from Earth 3, which, if you know the Crisis comics, you know that when Earth 3 was being destroyed, that world's Lex Luthor actually sent his son as an infant, Alexander, over to Earth 1, and then he would be raised by the monitors. So, it could be something similar to that. But at that end scene, you see, like, essentially an army fighting that version of Superman, and that version is wearing, I think, it's either very similar or the exact same black outfit that the Dr. Destiny version wore in Elseworlds. So was it Dr. Destiny, or is it just same costume but different version?
Yeah, that's a good question. I honestly didn't even pick up on that, so I have absolutely no theories.
Yeah. Well, it remains to be seen, but for whatever reason, he's reaching out to General Lane. And by the way, I really like the relationship between Superman and General Lane, because not only is it like son-in-law, father-in-law, but it's also the military's liaison to Superman. It works. Right. I like it. And he's not just an a-hole, as you typically see with military generals. He's actually a genuine concern for, Lois and her family. So I like that.
Yeah. No, it's a good relationship for sure.
Yeah, so we see this Captain Luthor trying to reach out to him, saying, you can't trust Superman. So I like that it's trying to drive a wedge that is already kind of there in the fact that Clark tells his sons, I'm Superman, and this is your identity, and General Lane didn't want him to do that because he's like, I see how much of an effect this has had on Lois. I don't want it to tear apart your family. And, I think it's interesting, the fact that they're going now with one son has powers first, and it's not the one you think, because they set it up to be Jonathan, and in the comics, Jonathan is the son, and he has powers, but now it's the other one, it's Jordan. But what's also funny is Jordan actually looks more like the comic version of Jonathan. It's just so many, I don't know, trying to subvert your expectations or just, I don't know, throw you off.
So I will say you do sort of get the sense that they're trying to walk that back a little, since Jor-El basically straight up says, "Oh, Jordan his human DNA is corrupting his Kryptonian DNA too much. He's never going to be able to activate these abilities on command."
Right,
which,
but he's just
obviously
starting.
He's gonna,
He's just starting to emerge. And here's the thing: Jor-El, and it's a hologram of Jor-El. He says, your son doesn't even have 1/100th of your strength. But in theory, Superman's strength is infinite. So what's 1/100th of infinite?
Infinite, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, all things considered, I think that's basically it for this episode.
This is more like episode 2 and 1. There was also something they were touching on that I like, and that's the whole rural versus city mindset. When they have Lois confronting Lana Lang's husband. And it's not exactly that they're going for a whole direct parallel with, let's say, current politics or current people who would be on the side of different politics. But, you can kind of see that hint there. But one thing I like is that it doesn't specifically condemn nor condone either side of the arguments that they're having, which I like. It has them present both their sides, and it's not preachy.
I mean, you do sort of get the sense, even from that brief interaction, that, these two are obviously very principled. They both obviously have very different worldviews, but they're at least both open to change, right? Like Kyle Cushing, who's Lana Lang's husband, I just looked up the name, actually says, like, to Lois, I read about this Morgan Edge guy. Some of the shit he did in the past isn't great. He's caused, like, a lot of these towns to go bankrupt. That's not going to happen here, but it's happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So... you sort of get that glimmer of, he's not, like, too far gone. He actually could come around to Lois's point of view, which obviously they're setting it up to make it seem like Lois is correct in this instance. Who knows if that's actually going to be the case? I mean, I'm inclined to believe that, but
obviously there's a stink about this edgelord to the max guy. But
yeah, no, you obviously can't trust him.
Regardless of that, I thought this guy Kyle made a decent point when he said, a little bit is better than a whole lot of nothing, when he was talking about people having jobs but not necessarily getting as high a wage as they ought to be. It's like he's saying that's better than not having any jobs at all.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I could dismantle all of the economic arguments with that, but
I get where he's coming from.
Yeah, it's like I understand the point he's trying to make, but at the same time, if you don't unionize now, what do you think is going to happen 10 years down the line? Do you really think this employer is just going to wage raises out of the kindness of his heart? If you let him step over you, you have no bargaining power, you know?
Right.
So, and look, there's a million obvious real world equivalents to what's going on there that we could discuss, but I feel like people don't want to actually hear the economics about this whole thing when they're watching the series.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's a few other aspects that I think are relatable. Like, they briefly mention in passing a bit of that Smallville kind of has a drug problem going on. And as somebody who did go to high school and middle school in a small town, there was some of that going on. So it's like, yeah, I see where that's coming from. Like, I feel like the further you get into towns, it's not like towns are without their issues. Of course they have their issues, and I like that they acknowledge that. But yeah, the whole thing with Jordan having social anxiety and him feeling kind of alien, I felt that, of course, before. And then they kind of upend Jonathan's life, right? Like, he's like, I'm going to be the star quarterback in Metropolis. I have a girlfriend. I have friends. And then they just up and move without, at least in the show, it's really sudden. It's like, this is going to come back to bite them at some point, I feel, unless he's really just that good of a person. But I don't know. I feel like there's going to be some latent resentment within him. But I relate to that too, because I lived in the city when I was younger, and then all of a sudden I moved to a more rural area. So it's like, there's a lot going on in the series where I look at it and I think, you know what, that's good. I recognize that. I feel that. It's interesting.
I mean, look, you do get that sort of pushback from him in this episode, but
yeah, the second episode.
Yeah, in the second episode. But at the same time, you sort of get the sense that, it's just that he isn't this perfect, upstanding character. There's some depth there that just wasn't explored initially. And that actually does make him a little bit more relatable, like you said. He's got more to lose. He's got more going on than, is first evident.
Right. Other things that I noticed, is it just me, or does Lana seem to still want Clark?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, she's still into
a little friendly.
Which is,
and honestly, her husband's kind of a douche, so yeah.
I get the sense that she has a thing for strong men, but isn't exactly picky about who they are, which is a lot like the Lana from the Superman animated series from the 90s, when she was dating Luthor, and then she shows up in Metropolis, and she's like, "Oh, Clark, I always knew who you were."
Yeah, so I mean, that's basically all I had to say about Lana. Yeah, go ahead.
Other things I noticed when Clark takes Jordan to the Fortress of Solitude, was that entrance the exact same one from Man of Steel?
It looked very similar. I mean, if you're asking if they used the same set, I doubt it, but it looked a lot alike. Yeah.
Yeah. Jor-El looked pretty good. I like his voice. He kind of sounds like Russell Crowe a bit.
I was about to say, I think they clearly modeled this version of Jor-El after Russell Crowe, like the actual parallels, and he looks a little bit like Russell Crowe to me too.
Yeah, similar beard.
I sort of get that sense from him. Yeah,
there's a lot of Man of Steel influence in this. Like, for instance, the scene when Captain Luthor is talking to General Lane, and then Superman just busts in and attacks him.
Like bulges into his shoulder. Yeah. It's really good mise-en-scène, actually, which you don't really see in network television all too often. But it's literally just perfectly framed. He comes into the shot, completely dismantles him. Mm-hmm. That's actually like one of my favorite shots in the entire episode.
And the music you hear in that scene when they're fighting sounds almost exactly like a track in the Man of Steel soundtrack, the You Die or I Do track. You can go look it up, or I'll just put it in the video here. I'll put them back to back and you can listen.
The second episode didn't reveal too much other than what we already said, that it's clearly a separate universe that Captain Luther's involved in. You can clearly see that his resentment towards Superman is at least partially justified.
Right.
And that actually does make him a more relatable villain, right? Like, you sort of understand where he's coming from, whereas most interpretations of Lex Luthor really just hate Superman because of the potential he could pose as a threat, right? Because he's this all-powerful being without any oversight.
Well, also, a lot of it is envy with Luthor, because he's this vastly intelligent person who, all his life, in some versions of him, he struggled to get to where he is, and so it's like after all this, he finally got to the position he's at, and now he's going to use his intellect to help mankind, and then along comes this alien who's just born with everything, has it all gifted unto him, and everybody worships Superman and not Lex, so there's a lot of envy to that aspect, but here it's different. It's more like, this one destroyed my world, and I won't let it happen to another, but even though it's a different version. But
yeah,
there must be like a lot of mistrust.
He has the same face, he has the same upbringing, he knows enough about this character to know that, oh, he has the potential to go full bad, and because he's seen it like firsthand, he knows he has a moral obligation to stop it. If there's even a 1% chance of him like actually going full injustice Superman, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought of.
And I think that's sort of like the Ben Affleck line in BVS, right? Where it's like, if there's even a 1% chance of this happening, we have to take it as an absolute certainty.
Mm-hmm. And then the big aw shit moment at the end of the episode was when Lois quits the Daily Planet because they alter her story about Edgelord to the max.
Yeah, it's a good commentary on journalism, actually.
I'm going to keep calling him that.
Yeah, so, look, honestly, I feel like she'd make more money writing for Substack than actually going to a little local local newspaper.
I was thinking, could she even maintain the job if she lives so far away from Metropolis? Because if Metropolis is New York and Smallville's in Kansas, what are you going to do? Plane back and forth every day?
Yeah, I've always wondered that since, it's always implied that Superman went to Metropolis straight out of going to Smallville. I always figured it was a local-ish city, but obviously the destination sort of changes as the story calls for it.
Yeah, well, in the Christopher Reeve movies, they had the freaking Statue of Liberty and World Trade Center on display. So,
yeah.
And then Gotham has sort of been related to New England.
Gotham in the DC Extended Universe is canonically in New Jersey, so I in the DCEU at least, I equate it to being Jersey City and New York City, right? Gotham is basically this crime-ridden, downtrodden city, which is Jersey City, and New York is just the greatest city in the world, which is Metropolis.
And yet, I think Kyle Rayner, the third Green Lantern comes from New York City in DC, so who knows?
Yeah.
That's about all I had to say.
That's all
good series. I recommend it so far, and I'm going to stick with it, at least for the first season. It could always get bad in subsequent seasons, as these shows on CW tend to do, but thus far, it looks promising.
Okay, so that's all we had. If you liked watching this or listening to this or however you're viewing it, consider, first of all, subscribing to our YouTube, since that's where you're consuming this content. If you want to listen to our podcast, check out utterlynonsense.com. All our links are in the description below. Thanks for watching.